Thank you for joining us today. What we thought was we would do a year-end overview of what's happening in AI because it's been such an exciting year. And to do that, I thought I'd bring in David Forder, the founder and CEO of Sentia AI, to talk about how AI has affected both the tech landscape and sales tech in particular. So David, thank you for joining us today. And I guess the first question is giving us a very broad overview on the year. What do you think are the biggest, the biggest impact that has happened with AI?
Yeah, well, firstly, as Dave said, my name's David Forder. For the people on the call that haven't met us before, I'm Dave's director at Sentia. I'm CEO and founder at Sentia, and AI technology firms and AI is pretty much this year like a gold rush. I like to use the analogy that we're the guys selling shovels, so we're the solution providers, as if it was a gold rush. And so we live in that AI space. We create applications that take the best of what AI has to offer, but then make sure that it can work for you and your teams in enterprise software. So today's briefing is going to be largely about 2023, a kind of retrospective on the year, where AI has ended up, but with the lens of enterprise software and businesses and how it can add value for all of us if it truly is. So we operate as a trusted advisor for our clients. We have these briefings fairly regularly. And now that you've been invited along, you'll be invited to future ones. So we try and do them every 3 or 4 months at the moment because there's so much shifting and changing. And as I said, it's not about Sentia today, our application, but we do, our application sits inside CRMs. So we're a Salesforce partner. It installs onto your CRM, Sentia, and then it brings in a load of functionality, multiple large language models, which I'll speak about a bit later. But today's about what's going on in the space. And as David said, I'll give you an overview of 2023 because it's been definitely like a landslide across the enterprise this year. So let me get cracking. So kind of as a recap, AI is not that new, frankly, and AI encompasses multiple technologies. So 2023 has been the year of large language models, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But back in 1989, IBM had Deep Blue, which was their AI initiative, which largely relied on machine learning. Beat some chess masters. I think Garry Kasparov went down to Deep Blue. In the 90s, as a PR stunt, they kind of had Deep Blue taking on some Jeopardy challenges on TV, and it won. The whisper was that Deep Blue got the questions in advance, but I'm not sure. Google's been using machine learning systems as AI since about 2001 to crunch data, all of our emails and phone calls, so they can improve the ads that they provide us. Photo recognition, they've used AI for quite a while, and now voice recognition, and we all have our OK Google boxes going off randomly. And OpenAI is obviously, this is the year of OpenAI and ChatGPT, but they actually launched their business in 2015, so it's not that new. And we began working on our Sentia application in 2016, largely because of the OpenAI consortium. So what is it? What's ChatGPT? What's this AI thing this year? The big initiative that launched this year was generative AI. And if for everyone on the call who understand what this is, I apologize. But basically, it's just software. ChatGPT is just software that can produce largely accurate text, images, and video in response to prompts, whether those prompts are from people like us or from other software packages. So that's what it's doing. So it does that by digesting a load of information. And then when we ask it something in plain English, it can interpret that request, the prompt, and throw back what it thinks is a good answer. And it's pretty effective at that. It doesn't always get it right, so it can hallucinate and give you wrong answers, but that's kind of what ChatGPT is doing. It's purely based on all of the material that it's digested in the past. And the innovation is in a neural network. So it's in the way that it stores that data to be able to throw back responses in answer to our questions in plain English. At 2023, ChatGPT's all the rage. McKinsey just released a report 2 weeks ago, which was really useful for this session, looking at the state of AI this year in corporate America. And basically 28% of Fortune 500 companies already have AI on their agendas every single month as a permanent item. And 79% of all respondents to McKinsey, which were working in those Fortune 500 companies, said they've at least had some exposure to Gen AI, either for work or outside of work. 22% are saying they're regularly using it in their own work. So I'm going to touch on some of these things today. So I'm going to go through the months. I'm not going to labor through every single month, just hit the highlights. January, beginning late in 2022, there were whispers that OpenAI was close to releasing a sort of public version of their ChatGPT product. In January, they signed a deal with Microsoft, which was worth around about $16 billion. It was a major strategic move for Microsoft that was so clever. They didn't even pay OpenAI any cash. They just gave them use of their services, their Azure product for hosting ChatGPT. But what it's done is it's given Microsoft a massive head start in this space. And it's kind of one of those strategic decisions that could end up crushing many other enterprise software vendors down the track a bit. So it was a smart move. In February, Google announced their Bard AI, but it was very limited in availability. We tried to get access to it to see what it could do, and it was kind of early release, some beta customers only. We kind of looked at that Bard AI announcement in February as being, hey, someone at Google said, hey, they're beating us at OpenAI. We have to say something. Please say something. And they released some press releases. March was when ChatGPT really began to get on everyone's radar. Kids were talking about it at school. Colleges were concerned about papers. Press discovered it. Their APIs opened up, and we, back then in March, turned on some of the first AI features in our own application at Sentia. So it seemed to the world like this GPT thing was here, and everyone needed to learn about it. In May, Midjourney launched what was an image generation product using, again, a large language model to produce those things. It was amazing people with its ability to create perfect pictures for them. I saw one, for example, of the Pope at a rave eating pizza. Pretty much anything you wanted that you could describe in words, it would generate an image. Apothic in July announced its own AI, Claude, which actually works better than ChatGPT, and I find, with nowhere near as much public coverage. But in July, Llama 2 was released by Meta, Facebook, as an open source LLM, large language model, which meant anyone could then take a copy of that and do whatever you wanted with it for free. So it was a major breakthrough for the industry and for software. And it was amazing that Meta, Facebook did this, which shows they're not as bent on world control as it would appear. Hobbyists could spin up their own AIs all around the planet. I have one here on my desktop computer beside me. In August, there were loads of conversations about safety. In August, all the major players in AI traveled to the White House and gave them assurances that there were controls and it wasn't going to take over the world. And there were fears that it would become something like Skynet. I'm sorry about the Terminator reference. But August was particularly notable this year due to Supreme Court rulings that said that any content generated by AI was not subject to copyright, which means a couple of things. Firstly, it means that you can generate whatever you like using ChatGPT or Claude or others, and there's no copyright on that. You can just publish it without any need to source or to reference its source. And secondly, you can't own that content. So if you did generate a book using ChatGPT, you can't own that and sue someone for copying your material. So it's not subject to copyright. It's open slather. In September, OpenAI opened ChatGPT up to the internet. Great idea. Remember the Skynet reference. And they also released DALL-E, which is its own image generator again, so which does that sort of give it some text. It'll throw up a picture for you. In November, Elon Musk, who had a checkered history in the AI space, he was an early contributor. He gave OpenAI $1 billion in 2015 and then took it back a couple of years later because he didn't like the direction they were traveling. So in November, he launched his own AI called Grok, and he'd trained that large language model on the extensive Twitter history data that he'd acquired. So it has a Twitter bent to all of its responses to your prompts. And here we are in December. 6,500 AI products, companies, and services, and that's just so far. So that's kind of the year-end recap, and we're going to drill into some sections of that, Dave, aren't we? But yeah, it's been like watching a Grand Prix or an IndyCar race this year. If you turn your head too quickly, you'll miss something.
It sure has. And if you think about it, a year ago, December, I don't even think AI was anybody's place. They weren't even thinking about it. It wasn't even like a thought until the end of January, as you noted. So
yeah,
that was a great evaluation of what's happened, Dave. We did have our first question here that just popped in, and then we're going to talk about the biggest features that the biggest AI feature impact that we've seen in the business world, because as you know, with those
Ready to go.
6,500 startups, the vast majority of them are vaporware or they're going to disappear. So we want to know the real impact. But Brigitte asked us, she's saying, what's going to happen to white collar workers in 2024? Is
Yeah.
there going to be some dislocation because of AI? And what does your crystal ball see for the white collar worker in 2024?
It's a good question because all of us are concerned. There was actually Business Insider put out a significant article just today about which roles should be concerned about AI. If the question's about 2024, the answer is not many. I've actually got some detail in an answer to another SEC question we have in a bit. At the moment, the only roles that are going to be impacted in 2024 due to AI coming into enterprise software looks like being service roles, so call center roles. And there's a few reasons for that, and I'm going to talk about it a bit later. So if you're in a call center and you're answering customer questions and concerns and calls on emails, then there's likely to be about an 8% impact on those roles in reduction. But in 2024, that's about it in terms of reduced employment opportunities. Having said that, in 2, 3, 4 years, it's a different story. So hopefully that sort of, as I said, I'll touch on some of those things.
Excellent question, Brigitte. Dave, I've got one more question for you. So one of the challenges I see with AI, and I get this when I talk to CIOs and CFOs especially, they say, well, Dave, I can see 20, 30, 50 different use cases, things I can do, but at the end of the day, I'm evaluated on what do I invest in that makes us more money. So with that perspective, can you tell me what you think are the features that have had the biggest impact in the AI space as far as ability to actually generate either time productivity or savings or reduce headcount or something that you see that are making a real difference versus the talk thing that we see so much?
I think AI has incredible potential, and it will save money for businesses and potentially improve productivity for businesses. But there's a couple of pieces that need to be put into place to realize those benefits. So if we're talking about enterprise software, so we're talking about companies, not individuals, then there's a piece that needs to be considered around risk, data privacy, and that will block some of these benefits from being realized initially. And then there's a user adoption piece. What's really important is that I can, for instance, if I'm going to write a blog post, I can definitely go off to an AI, ask it to write the blog post for me, and it'll save me 10, 15 minutes, which is great. But for a corporate with enterprise software, to be able to do that inside their enterprise software means their team has to be across, not wasting more time than they save learning how to use those things. So it needs to be easily deployed, easily used, familiar, and within the current enterprise software platform, which is what we do at Sentia. We bring it in, but short term, it's not that easy to realize those savings. They're there to be had, but there's a lot of work to be done in terms of risk, data security, and upskilling users, and then changing your enterprise software so those features are easily accessed by your team to get the benefits. So hopefully
that's one of the problems right now, right, Dave? I mean, I think listening to you, you've talked to a number of vendors. Will they come in and they'll say, oh, well, we've got 37 different apps to do what the salesperson needs. And you're looking at them incredulously saying, how can you expect anybody to really function and get their job done with that many apps? I mean, you're spending the day alt tab, which window, which tool can I use now? Do you see AI making that easier for us?
No, no, worse. So what happens at the moment is the average, if we're talking about salespeople, for instance, the average salesperson has to use 10 apps a day at least. And this is Gartner research. So when I say to people, well, you're already asking your sales team to use 10 apps, companies look at me incredulously and say, no, we're not. But when you when you game that out and say, well, you're asking them to use a CRM, you're asking them to use Outlook or maybe Google Mail. So that's 2. Both of those have AI coming into them separately, mind you. So, in Outlook, you can use Microsoft Copilot. In the CRM, you can use AI features. But then you have LinkedIn, and there's LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is 2 apps. So we're at 4. Then you're asking them to use Microsoft Office. And again, there's AI in there. Again, separate AI doing separate things. So that's 5. Then you've got some sort of lead generation software going on, whether it's Gong or titles and emails and phone number software like Zoom Info. That's 5, 6, 7. Then you've got a CMS and a HR system and an ERP, and all of those have AI in them, but they're not interconnected. So when you start adding it up, it's easy to get to 10 apps for every user. All of them are bringing AI into each of them. So when you look at one specific app and say, well, in our marketing software, for instance, the AI will generate emails for our salespeople. That's a great saving. It's like, yes, but that's in your marketing system. That's not in your CRM. So where are they to work? Which AIs are the ones that are going to matter? They're not coordinating all of that into one platform. And so you find in those sorts of cases, AI becomes more confusing and more load on salespeople and less able to deliver benefits. So on the face of any one of those, AI in there can make it much more effective. But when a salesperson's asked to jump between all 10 all through the day, they won't know where to turn. And that's kind of the problem we solve.
That seems like so it's the platform or the system that's important, so that, it's accurately saying what do they need at which point in that day, and which apps should magically appear to help them and then disappear when they go to the next step. So that makes a lot of sense. We've had some great questions that have come through, Dave, and I think we're going to table those to
let me
the end, because otherwise we're going to get way off track. But why don't we get back on track?
Yep.
So you gave us a really nice overview in the last basically the last 10 to 12 months of 2023. Your idea on the biggest impact, are those can actually measure the difference, it sounds like. So what is your opinion on which AI sales tech features are going to become mainstream? We've talked about the cell phone and the fax machine and the cloud, how they were all the big buzz for 2 or 3 years, and then they kind of faded into everybody has it. Is that what you're seeing with AI, or what is your crystal ball telling us?
We'll come back to the questions, and everyone can turn on their microphone if they want a conversation, but we'll do it at the end.
Absolutely.
I've got slides here to run through. So let me run through what features I think have had the biggest impact in 2023, and then what I think will have the biggest impact in 2024, and then we can come back to some of the questions. So firstly, for business, I think this year so far, the biggest impact AI has had for companies is in chatbots. So most of the large corporates now, the chatbots on their websites have AI augmenting them if they're not entirely run by AI already. That's technology that they jumped on very quickly. So the chatbots, in the past, they would take your name and details and push you through to an operator, but now they tend to be a lot more useful. They particularly work for customers who might be millennials or Gen Z who don't really want to talk to a real person anyway. And those chatbots have a wider scope of functionality and usefulness. So they'll start answering questions intelligently and be able to give you useful information before potentially passing you on to somebody. The next are applications in sales and marketing. There's a ton of hype in this space. There's a lot of promises in terms of AI in enterprise software for sales and marketing, but the real ones at the moment are largely restricted to helping users write content, be it email content or posts for social media or LinkedIn, or writing articles. So that's kind of the real ones that are in place this year, 2023. The area where AI is starting to roll out aggressively is in service operations like customer care and back office support. And I mentioned that a little earlier. These have really begun adding value, and service teams now are, as soon as you make an inquiry or ring into a call center, they'll have an AI generate, if they're using, say, Salesforce Service Cloud, they'll have an AI generated summary of all the interactions that you've had with that company. So they won't have to sit there and say, look, let me read your notes. It will just be pushed to them automatically. And they'll have AI throwing up solutions while you're speaking to the operator, saying, this is a possible answer to that question. This is a possible answer to that question. So all that's in place now in 23. So in terms of what's happened this year, these are the kind of areas that are in place now that are driven and informed by AI. The McKinsey report threw in this chart, which is really useful. But again, it's kind of summarizing what I said. It's about drafts of text documents, drafting technical documents, drafting research use of chatbots. So they're confirming what we've found, that it's these areas that this year are really in the mainstream. And for 2024, Dave, chatbots will be getting smarter and smarter. They'll start pre-qualifying leads and even push some people through to booking appointments, so doing the job of SDRs. And these can do this now, but they haven't quite been pushed out commercially broadly. So the chatbots are getting smarter and smarter. We've all, I'm sure, watched the Google, I think it was a Google Vertex demo of a voice system that books appointments for hairdressers and things, and it sounds human. I think on a chatbot, a text chatbot, they're close now with AI to be able to fool a human being that they're not a real person. But even on phone calls with fake ums and pauses and stuff, you can usually pick it's not a human. So they're not quite at the point where they can fake being a person. Text chatbots are pretty much at that point now. But we can still pick voice, and definitely can still pick video as being not human. The 2 million years of evolution allowing us to ID what's a real human being is tough to fool. In next year, I think the crafting of mass mail outs and LinkedIn messages customized for each recipient is going to be extensively deployed. We can do that now in our Sentia system. So you'll get mass mail outs, email mail outs, and LinkedIn messaging, where it will go first and look at the person's LinkedIn profile, pull in information from the customer's CRM, and then tailor an email. Even though it's a mass mail out, they'll be customized emails for each client. Timely and on-demand research generated automatically for leads and accounts is already in place in our product on CRM, but certainly in Microsoft Dynamics, that will be coming mid next year. And finally, sentiment analysis in 2024 will be widely demonstrated and start to be deployed. Sentia does this, Gong.io is working on this. Basically, we can monitor meetings like this, phone calls, emails, and the AI within Sentia will come back and say whether it was positive or negative, highlight action items, say how it thought it went, give you coaching tips on how you can get better on a phone call, for instance. And all of that's going to be widely deployed in 2024.
So that seems like an opportunity for sales reps to get better faster if they can get that real-time feedback of how their calls are going.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's really powerful. We had an example in my company where we had one of my staff received an email from a lead that he was working with. The email was to cancel a meeting that they had booked and say, we're going to have to rebook for a couple of weeks' time. On first reading, it looked like it was negative. The lead was canceling a meeting. The AI reported back, Sentia reported back that that was actually a really positive email, because in the body of the email, the person went on to explain why they had to cancel the meeting for a couple of weeks. And they wanted some time internally to garner support for, in our case, Sentia. And so the AI came back and said, that's actually a very positive email. You've got an internal champion in this business, and he's asking for some time to do this. So the staff person read it as a negative because it was a cancellation, a delay of a meeting. The AI came out and said, no, actually, this is really positive. And that was a good learning experience for that person, for that staff person. So the AI sees things that we don't necessarily see if it's configured correctly. So yeah, sentiment analysis is going to be a big one in this coming year, 2024. And finally, auto discovery of leads from LinkedIn is coming. We're working on this now, where the AI can monitor your target base, customer base, and highlight people who may have liked a competitor on LinkedIn, or made a first level connection with one of your competitors, or changed roles, or whatever. So that's definitely going to be rolling out in 2024 as well. And that's a really powerful feature.
Was that it for 2024, Dave?
I think so. That's a lot.
It is, and it's kind of amazing. I can see the sentiment analysis. I mean, if that doesn't like raise your eyebrows and make you think, nothing else will, because that's one of the challenges with the new salespeople is just because you can memorize a script and you can memorize a product book, that to and fro when you're actually in those conversations, when you get to them, of course, it's a real challenge for a manager to ascertain, you know, does this person have the ability to think on their feet? When they're given a negative question or a competitor question, how do they respond to that? I mean, that sentiment analysis, I can see how every manager would want to get a report if my person does really good or really bad, so that I have an idea what's going on, and I can figure out who do I keep or who do I, get rid of. Unfortunately, we're looking at what the average length of stay for a sales rep in America is 12 to 18 months. So it's almost like you got to be on the continuous hiring path unless you have some training or something that's making yourself better than your competitors.
I think
Makes a lot
AI
of
can help
sense.
a lot with that. There's a couple of other features in 2024 that people will start to see, but these are the ones that I think will be widely deployed by companies in their software. We're working on another one that will listen to meetings like this and on a sidebar give us a heads up if someone's not paying attention. So if cameras are on, it might say, well, Fred there isn't paying attention, or that particular lead that you're meeting with didn't like that when you said this term or this phrase. So there's a lot of real-time monitoring available with AI, but in terms of that's more likely to be commercial in 2025. In terms of 2024, though, these are the biggies. It's a matter of, I guess, they're running through the CRMs now and looking at where they're all at.
Well, speaking of CRM, so all of the leading CRM vendors have jumped on board the AI train. And out of all the sales tech space I can think of, the CRM vendors are the ones that are most often likely to exaggerate or use some puffery or say something's available right now and it's really like 6 months to a year in the future. So can you give me an idea of where the major CRM providers are right now, as far as what are they actually able to deliver in AI versus what is coming in the future? I mean, I think I saw something with the HubSpot CEO early in the year being so excited that he could write an email with ChatGPT, which, now we're all laughing at because that's like one of the simplest things that AI can do. But what are they talking about versus what's available today?
So this exercise, and I'll run through each of the majors. This exercise is actually very difficult. The majors, and CRM is our sweet spot. So Sentier is a CRM solution provider. So we are a Salesforce partner, as I said at the start, but we also can have our Sentier Smart Layer interface with Microsoft, HubSpot, NetSuite, Oracle, other CRMs. So it's our space. And every week, probably multiple times a week, I'm bombarded by press releases from the major CRM players with announcements about their AI feature sets. Inevitably, when you drill through, there's announcements about what's coming. There's announcements about what they have planned. They'll even claim these are available, but when you push through, they're in early release to certain selected customers. I'm trying to get a sense of exactly where each player is at into today, where you can hand over your dollars, and what features you will see is almost a full-time job. But you don't have to worry about it because we've done it for you. So let me run through the big ones. So Microsoft CRM is Microsoft Dynamics 365, but they obviously have the Office suite of products and Outlook, and they've got a big advantage in the enterprise space. So I put them up first. I said earlier on that in January, Microsoft struck a strategic partnership with ChatGPT in return for just time on their servers, which was amazing. And that's given them a huge leg up in this space. So within their Office suite of products, they've released Microsoft Copilot. I think it's Copilot 365 or something like that, but it's a Copilot, which means it can sit alongside your screen in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and help you write things, help you answer questions, all that stuff that we do with ChatGPT. So that's Copilot. It's available now. So it's available, and it's also available in Outlook, which gives them a kind of a segue through to CRM, because obviously if you're using Microsoft Dynamics as your CRM, you're using Outlook as well, and the Copilot app is in Outlook, so it will help you with email generation. So that's not really Dynamics 365 helping you with email generation, but they claim it. So you get that with Copilot in Outlook. Within Dynamics itself, right now today, all I could find that was actually in general release is the ability to create lead summaries, so a summary of activity with leads, and summaries for meeting prep. So that's what's live today in terms of what I could uncover without paying a fortune
And
for some.
that's really not AI even. That's more of a machine learning and pattern matching, right?
They're using AI to do it, but it's just that piece. So if you're using Microsoft Dynamics and weren't using Outlook, for instance, which would be odd, that's the piece that in AI that on Dynamics you can take advantage of. But as I said, you're probably using the whole Office suite, so it would appear like you have the AI across the email generation piece with Outlook. I switched to Edge in the last couple of months, Microsoft Edge from Chrome as a personal browser, because they have their Bing AI up in the top right corner, always there. I'm using that as well. So I guess I'm a user of Microsoft AI, but not a user of Dynamics as a CRM. And in terms of Dynamics, lead summaries, meeting prep is about it at the moment. That's live and in general release. Salesforce CRM is, closer to home for us. They're a little further along. They obviously don't have Outlook and the Office suite. But in terms of CRM, they're further along. They really scrambled this year. I don't know if they were caught flat-footed, but they certainly jumped into action. They've had an AI offering, which was based around machine learning, called Einstein for quite a few years now, 4, 5, 6 years. And so they've now been rolling out expanded functionality in their Einstein product across the CRM. Right now, today, these are the features that you can buy and are in general release. So if you're a user of Service Cloud, which is that call center type customers I mentioned, it will do summaries, will automatically generate emails, can give you a quick catch up of conversations. So the AI will look at all the conversations a client's had and give the service agent a summary. And it will automatically suggest answers to questions and things like I mentioned earlier today. In terms of Sales Cloud, right now today, it will draft up sales emails for you and call summaries. All these things require a significant increase in cost for the seats that you buy with Salesforce.com, but if you're happy to pay the price, then it will do those things. And in Marketing Cloud, they've got content being generated by AI and a subject line generator that can be customized with a whole lot more features coming next year. So they've kind of got it's a good start, Salesforce CRM. And out of all of the vendors of CRM, they've got the most to market, and kudos to Salesforce, because I'm in a weekly briefing from Salesforce on in this space. And these things have been being deployed and rolled out very quickly. So people are working very hard inside Salesforce to stay on top of this. They also, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later, the risk issue around using AI. Salesforce lead the way in that area. So they have locked down their data. They don't feed your information off to large language models where they can learn on it. Salesforce have that data security and privacy issue locked down. So again, kudos to them. And it's not because we're a partner. They just put more time and effort into that piece, I think. In terms of HubSpot, Dave mentioned the HubSpot CEO's demo. I saw him it was on their homepage for a while. They had a HubSpot GPT, which is ChatGPT at the time anyway. He typed in a name and an address, and the AI said, would you like us to add it to your CRM? And he thought that was amazing. I thought, well, I've typed in the name and address. Why wouldn't I just type it into the CRM rather than do that in 2 steps? But anyway, they thought it was amazing. Right now today, in terms of their marketing product at HubSpot, it will do subject line generation for you and generate lots of content for websites, the customized websites for your clients. In terms of the CRM though, in HubSpot, which is a sort of a second tier product for them, at the moment it's limited to pretty much sales forecasts. So it will help in terms of generating forecasts for the C-suite. Not really as extensive an offer as Salesforce or Microsoft in terms of use for salespeople. And then NetSuite and Oracle, all of the other providers in CRM really haven't got a lot of great features other than a bot that sits beside you and you can ask it for things. So nothing pushed to you. NetSuite and Oracle do use AI now, and it's just been released in the last few weeks to analyze your financial forecasts. And that's kind of it. So if you follow the news, you would imagine all of these guys are basically putting rockets on the moon with AI this year, but this is the reality. So there's some good features in there. There's a lot more they can do. And again, not wanting to advertise Sentia, but we introduced 26 features with Sentia that are AI driven to a CRM, all sorts of things like removing duplicate data and automatically filling in titles and emails and a whole lot of other things, sentiment analysis. None of these guys are doing that stuff yet. So we're way ahead of the curve. And that's what these people will be focusing on, I think, next year, these companies.
So it seems to me, if I listen to that, the top 5 players are kind of like the big software dilemma that it takes longer for them to create things that are really cutting edge and new. So maybe this is one of those times where you need to go with a smaller, the more nimble consultants and AI implementers that really are on that cutting edge to get those gains, because it just sounds like there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of actual delivery with any of those big guys just yet. I mean, later in maybe second or third quarter, it sounds like stuff's going to be popping up. But if they need somebody right now to figure it out, they don't really seem like the guys to go to.
No, nice ad for Cynthia, Dave. I agree. And there's a reason for that. There's issues with risk and privacy of data, which we handle. But a lot of them have a momentum. So they have a development roadmap. I think this year, a few of them were caught on the hop with the OpenAI, basically rolling out a commercial product long before anyone thought they would. So they've been caught a little flat-footed, possibly, without knowing about what goes on internally at these players. And a lot of them have played catch-up this year, and they have a momentum. So if these companies are earning good money now, there's not a lot of incentive for them to disrupt their plan dramatically. So you see a lot of press releases and not so many features coming out, and they'll gradually deploy all these other things out there. But yeah, I mean, what you said's right. A small, nimble player as a trusted advisor like us can get a whole lot more features deployed to your team. And we do a few other things as well, but today's not really about us.
Gotcha. All right. So if you think about 2024 and you put your CIO thinking and AI strategy cap on for next year, and let's just focus specifically on the AI sales tech space, what things realistically can you focus on in Q1 that you can actually see up and having your sales reps using in those first few months of the year? Because generally when you think about doing an IT install or configuration, you're talking 6 months to a year to get any value out of it. But AI is happening too fast for that. It seems like to me, if I'm a CSO or CRO, I want to see a difference in Q1. Is that possible?
I'd love to say yes, but not really. So let me jump forward a couple of slides, and I'll talk about why. So if you're a company now and you've got all your users on a CRM, whichever type of CRM it is, you have a major problem in terms of making sure you get value from AI. And I've hinted at this earlier in some of my comments. For AI to work for a sales team, for instance, a service team is a little easier. A service team has to sit at their screens all day long. So having AI generate call summaries or suggested answers to customers calling in is much easier to deploy and have them use them. So service team members are where they're a lot hanging fruit. So that's where CRMs can bring AI in, add a lot of value, potentially reduce staffing numbers by 8%, according to McKinsey. So that's an easy one. But the big one everyone always asks about is sales teams. And the challenge in generating returns for sales teams in CRM is salespeople don't like using their CRM. So, Forrester's numbers and deal code numbers say that the average daily user adoption by sales teams of CRM is still at about 26%. So that means 3/4 of the sales team don't embrace their CRM every single day. So it doesn't matter what features you have on there unless you fix that usability issue for reps. So yeah, the first quarter next year, it's not a simple matter. If you wanted to get returns from AI, it's not a simple matter of turning them on in your CRM or paying us to build them out in your CRM, for instance. You have to get your sales team to embrace the CRM to begin with and solve the problem. And there's some stats on my screen about why they refuse to embrace the CRM. They're asked to use 10 apps every single day. The CRMs are confusing and data heavy and data laden, lots of reports and list views. Our Sentia flagship app does fix all these problems. We introduce a smart layer that surfaces cards telling reps what they should do every day. So we kind of change the face of the CRM. But if you don't have Sentia, first quarter next year, if you really want to generate returns from AI, you need to be fixing these problems. And that is user adoption by sales teams, the effectiveness of the CRM, the quality of the data on the CRM, and all those things that will make potentially AI deliver value for you, but it has to happen first.
It
So
seems like those are the same problems that the CRM industry has faced for the past 20 years. So as much as there's been hype around AI, it's still not solving the problems, at least yet. So Joseph, Michael, Brigitte, Mohammed has some great questions.
no, let's answer.
Before we jump into those, was there any other considerations, Dave, or any more slides that you want to show us before we jump into questions?
I'll just do one more. I'm always asked, I'm not going to talk about the risk one. We spoke about that. And I think most people are aware that data privacy issues are a huge concern in AI. I often get asked, well, what's the next big thing that's coming? It solves this data risk issue, and that is dedicated LLMs. So it's effectively right now today, give us maybe 2 months, we could have your own large language model up and running for your business inside your CRM or not, which was not connected to any of these other third-party products out there, not necessarily even connected to the internet if you didn't need it to be, but it can digest all of your company's data and information and act as a ChatGPT, but it's your own private one. I have one on my desktop computer here that's mine. So it's digested all the information I have on me on my machine, and it's not connected to the internet, and I can use it all day long to write content, write articles, write information, and it gets to know me. So the future, and I suspect it won't be in 24, it's more likely 25, is companies will have a dedicated large language model that's theirs, knows their staff, knows their staff's capabilities, knows all of their customer details and their product information. And that's when these things are going to become super effective. So if I was sitting on this call in a senior position in a business and thinking, well, how do we prepare for that? You need to spend 24 getting all these sort of foundational issues solved with your CRM, user adoption. Make sure that the CRM adds value for sales teams and service teams. Talk to someone like us as a trusted advisor. Get it fixed, because then you can roll out your own large language model, and it's going to be a super powerful tool for your business because it will be trained on everything to do with your company. So Dave, I just wanted to end with that before we sort of have a Q&A. But if people want to turn on their microphone, we can have a discussion or a debate about any of these things. So feel free.
Sure. If anybody wants to do that, we can. But while you do that, why don't we jump in and we'll address some of the questions that were earlier. So Michael Hudlow, the author of How Not to Mess Your CRM System, has asked you, you talked about the shovel, Dave. What does this mean, and how has this been better than what other AR solutions are doing? Is it more resistant to change? So you want to talk about the shovel versus...
Yeah, I mentioned a shovel because in the gold rush, the only companies that actually made money were the guys selling shovels to the miners, and it was kind of a passing reference to the 6,500 other companies out there making services and products for AI. So we're there in between. So we're the solution providers, like the shovel sellers. And what we do is we stay connected with everything that's happening in AI. We introduce that smart layer on your CRM. So we will, for instance, on our Sentia system this year, for our clients, we've switched to multiple AIs throughout the year. As Claude, for instance, gave some better outcomes than ChatGPT, we would change our product Sentia on the back end. For the customer, all they got was a better outcome on their CRM. So we act as that solution provider and that trusted advisor. So in terms of reducing risks, companies, I think that was Michael's question, companies need to have one of those, so that either that if they're a large enough business, they can bring on their own data scientists and have a project team that does what we do. If they're not a Fortune 500, then they need a company like us to be able to do that and help them navigate through this rapidly shifting space, because you don't want to get left behind, but you also don't want to waste money on technology that's not going to add value.
Gotcha. So we're going to try to keep this to 1 hour. So I've got about 5 questions for you. So let's kind of jump through here. So Joseph Berger asks, with the various AI offerings from the major cloud providers, Google, Azure, AWS, how do enterprises evaluate which to use, and should they work with all three to gain the capabilities of their closed garden AI capabilities?
That's such a great question, and it's kind of, I touched on it earlier, but But let me answer that. It changes. So, and it changes monthly. So the risk is, unless you're embedding yourself, or you can find if you're a company that doesn't want to use, like, we can do it for you. But if you're a company that wants to do it in-house, it's important you find someone internally who will be the champion that will track and follow these things, because they all are shifting and changing functionality and features. ChatGPT had an update about 5 weeks ago that put 65 vendors out of business, because there were these service providers that had built services that ran on ChatGPT. ChatGPT introduced a new feature. All of a sudden, those 65 were unnecessary and out of business. They couldn't charge a premium for what they were offering. Any of their clients of those 65 companies then are kind of stuck. So you either need to use someone like us, and I'm not actually trying to flog our business over and over, or internally bring on a champion that will stay in touch with these things, because they will shift and change. I mean, Google has Vertex, Meta has Llama, there's Bing, there's Bard AI of Google as well, still at the moment. There's Claude from Apothic, which does a great job. Then if people want images for blog posts and content, there's Midjourney and there's DALL-E, and it's very hard to keep up with which are the most effective or the most cost-effective solutions to use. So I'm not sure if that answered Joseph's question, but hopefully it did.
All right, so Jake Hammerman has a really good data and security question. What's the outlook and prediction to navigate the challenge of securing sensitive data in a hybrid AI landscape? Organizations utilizing both on-premise SaaS systems and public AI tools such as GPTs, Einstein, Copilot, etc., including the understanding of immediate regulatory requirements, managing risk, and exploring the best practices for AI utilization. I think Jake has a great question, because everybody's afraid of what can you do, and you need an enterprise-grade system to protect you. So that great question, Jake.
It is a great question. There's a really short answer, and then there's a comprehensive answer. So the short answer is, the only way to be certain that you're meeting regulatory compliance issues and keeping your data secure is to have either don't use AI at all, or use your own dedicated large language model. So you can silo it, you can have it individually created for yourself. It's not, I was going to say it's easy to do. It's not easy to do, but it's doable today. We can set one up for you, and that's secure. So that's the only way to be 100% certain that you're not training someone's LLM, or you're not going to get data leaks and the like. So that's the only answer. Don't use AI or have your own LLM is the short answer. The more comprehensive answer is, there's different providers offering different levels. And I usually, when I'm speaking to companies, clients, I'll talk to them about their privacy threshold, their own comfort level around privacy. So Salesforce.com, for instance, with their CRM, will generate emails for sales team members and service team members automatically. And it's in conjunction in a partnership with ChatGPT, but it's not branded that way, but it is. But they don't pass the email that they're drafting, the reply they're drafting for you, they don't pass the email details off to ChatGPT, because it would retain them and it would train that LLM, and it would be a privacy risk. So what they do is they encrypt it. But there's also data that isn't involved in doing that process, that isn't locked away and protected that way. You can encrypt the email and send it to a ChatGPT or similar, and it will draft up a reply and decrypt it when it comes back. But you're still sending it an email. So you still, the LLM then it's still seeing that you're getting this many emails, this many days, this many times from this many parts of the world, or this many divisions. There's still data inherent in that process, even though the actual email content is encrypted. Just the fact that it's calling, asking for draft emails, gives that LLM information about your business. So the next time a competitor goes to one of those AIs and says, who's my biggest competitor in this space, it will know who's asking it for the most email drafts and can inform on that. So there's still data leakage, no matter what you do with a publicly available AI like that. Even if the actual email content, hopefully that answered the question, even if the actual email content is encrypted and they can't read it, it still knows it's asking for a certain number of replies, which divisions, who's asking for them, all that sort of stuff. So the short answer is, have your own LLM. There's a cost to that. There's some pain in getting it set up. We can do it for you, but that's the only way to be certain that none of your data is going to leak out there.
Yeah, I think out of all the things that I've seen, private LLMs to me are probably going to be the most sought after item just because of that corporate security and making sure that the IP that you create, which is your emails as well as the speaking ability of people, is so important. So appreciate that, Dave. So let me go on to the next question. I think Muhammad had a really good question here.
Yes, Mo.
Yeah, Muhammad Al-Dahabi, hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
That's Mo.
How do you see AI applications in terms of data and trend analytics? Fishing for data and trends within multiple data pools. This is a great question. I think marketing and sales is almost always the ones that are on top of technology first. And as I know you're going to tell us, Dave, there's an amazing amount of things you can do with the data if you know how to prompt it correctly, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah. To answer, because we're running out of time, to answer that question, the best way to get an analysis of trends, AI like ChatGPT even, is fantastic. If the data is not private, is fantastic for analyzing trends in data, but you need to give it the data. So I've seen people do this. They'll go to their ChatGPT or Claude or Bing and say, can you tell me a trend in the sales of, Croc sandals over the last 12 months? It will give you an answer. But that answer will be based on either it will make it up or it will be based on the information that it's had access to in the past, which may be flawed. It might be wrong. It might be, who knows if it's correct. If you wanted to do what LLMs do really well is analyze data when you give it the data yourself. So if you have sales figures or industry sales data, don't just ask the AI for an analysis of the market. Give it the file. So upload the Excel spreadsheet or the PDF or the document and say, make sure in your prompt you say, restrict your answer to only the information I'm giving you here in this attachment. And it will do that, but you have to state that, or you'll risk getting a flawed analysis back. So hopefully that answered the question. Give it what you want it to analyze. If you don't have it, get the data first, and then the AI will do an amazing job at any sort of analysis on that information.
Thanks, Dave. So Brigitte asks, I love the lead gen discovery potential. However, a concern with sentiment analysis is that it might dilute our ability to suss out the dynamics of a situation or conversation. I'd be concerned about us giving up agency in that respect. And I think Brigitte has a really good question. And I think it really comes down to the manager, right? If the manager is looking at what's good and bad, they need to look at the whole picture versus just the parts that as Brigitte's saying, that individual pieces of sentiment analysis. It could be an hour-long conversation, but if it picks up one bad thing, it can't dilute the entire conversation. I think that's what Brigitte's going to, right?
Yeah, we use that sentiment analysis piece on calls, emails, and meetings in Sentia. We use it in a couple of ways. For the person that's having the meeting call and or email, we surface cards with what the AI felt about that. Most of the time, those users, the individual salesperson is probably going to ignore that because they were part of the meeting. It might give them some information if they're new and need training, or they might glance at it, but it's not as critical as it is for, say, management. So what we do is we surface, when we set up a system for a client with sentiment analysis, we say to management, what do you want to know about? And they may say to, for instance, on my system, I want to know if a meeting or a call that a staff person has is super positive or if it's really negative. And so Sentia will surface a card for me when any of my team has a meeting or a phone call where it's super positive or super negative. And then I can click that card and read the outcome of the meeting and why the AI felt that's what it was. So it's more a way of having oversight across your team's activities. Biggie, turn your microphone on. I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at it in the context, the larger context of society, right? And I know this is specific to business and specific to our profession, but just because I track the impact on people in general of generative AI specifically. So this is why I asked the question, because a lot of times, for example, if I speak to someone about, hey, we do this in my company, or would you like to buy my products, or, I do chocolate tasting, would you like a chocolate tasting for your company? So a lot of times whether or not you do business with someone depends on, hey, do you like this person, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
all other things being equal, who are you going to work with? It's the person you like. So I think probably, I'm hoping that my concern is overblown, but at the same time, maybe not next year, maybe not in 2 years, but over time, I would just hate to see us as a society become, completely incapable of reading each other's emotions and relying on AI.
Devoid of
I think,
personality is the way I think about it, really, right? I
yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
is really what differentiates you is when somebody speaks to you, do you have a Southern accent or a Boston twang? I mean, those are the things that differentiate you to the people you're selling or buying from. It's how they remember, differentiate you, and in their head, they're creating a story about you. And if you're more fun and you make them laugh or have some good jokes or remember their birthday versus somebody that doesn't, that's I think that's always going to make a difference.
I think Biggie, there's I mean today's session's about what AI is doing in business, but I respect the question, the comment. Philosophically, I mean, I'm not touching on whether we should do these things or shouldn't, and what impact they might have on sales teams and service teams and things. It could be negative, definitely. I think the challenge for businesses is it's going to happen anyway, whether it's good or bad, because it's going to create savings and it's going to give management much better oversight. I mean, in line with that, I'm often asked the question, well, can AI replace a salesperson? And initially, no, it can't, because of the relationship thing that you and David mentioned. Like, your salespeople will always add value. They'll be more effective with AI incorporated properly, but they'll always be effective in terms of building relationships. The point, and it may only be 4 or 5 years away, but the point where AI will replace salespeople completely is when AI is replaced buying completely, and it's not that far away. So there will come a day when there won't be salespeople, but will only be when companies have products that can be purchased by AI, and you'll have AI answering questions from AIs about their service or product offer. And it's not that far off, I can tell you. So that's when the day of the salesperson will end. Might be 5 years, might be 10 years, but it's going to happen because it's far more effective for a buyer, an AI buyer in a company, to know all the needs of that business and then go out and interrogate providers and their AI and get the answers quickly and effectively and productively, unfortunately. That's probably a way off, but it may not be as far off as we all suspect.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Birgit. I think with AI, keeping our moral compass, if you will, aligned is super important. So our next question is from Mr. Joseph Berger.
Yeah.
Given the increase in AI, do you see higher implementation of revenue ops SaaS solutions like Gong in the next 3 years? Good question, Joseph.
I do, with a proviso. And it was on one of my slides. The Gong has a great product. They're putting a lot of effort into AI and enriching their product and doing connection with CRM and elsewhere. But it always comes down to this one issue. For a corporate, the CRM is the system of record. It's not, but it needs to be. So for a company that has a CRM, it needs to store any and all interactions with customers. It doesn't at the moment, but it should. And so anything that detracts from the CRM, and the reason is that corporate needs one system of record with everything about their customers, their salespeople, their emails, their activity, everything in one place to be able to generate the analytics and provide forecasts and things that they need. So the CRM has to operate as a single source of truth. When a salesperson's asked to use 10 different apps every single day, 10 plus apps, then you've got salespeople leaving notes in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, in Gong.io, you've got them leaving notes in Zoom Info, you've got them leaving notes in the CMS and in HubSpot for marketing and email marketing products. And so the CRM isn't functioning as a single source of truth. So although these point solutions like Gong.io are great solutions, they're not in the CRM. So then you need to make sure that all that information comes into the CRM. And if you can reproduce that same functionality as Gong provides inside the CRM, why do you need Gong? So all of these point solutions out there, some of them are really good. I often get asked that. I say, well, that's great, but where do you want your rep to work? Do you want him to sit outside the CRM or inside the CRM? And how many different apps does he have to switch between every day to be effective? Like, it's driving salespeople mad, which is why the CRM only has 26% user adoption. So if we can get all this stuff inside the CRM, use Gong. If it doesn't bring it all inside the CRM, then I see it being a problem for corporates. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. So Jake raised a really good point back. He was the one that was asking about security and data governance within inside of a company. And he said, assuming a new AI governance department would go alongside with that. And I think that's a great point, because that actually is another thing that happened in 2023. I mean, a year ago, there was no such thing as an AI governance department or AI morals or ethics department. And to Jake's point, I think that's going to be a huge part. It's going to be almost like their own HR type of group going forward. So another good point, Jake. So Michael, thanks for asking that question. Brian, so you are talking a little bit about, so I say, Brian's note was, I so much agree that it's important to appoint an internal champion to stay in touch with AI innovations in general, and also to guide internal adoption. What belongs to everybody belongs to nobody. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we see happening with the 6,500 AI companies just in Silicon Valley is that you really, it's so hard to know what are my choices versus what works versus what's going to work in a year and I should wait. So I think that's a really good point, Brian. Thank you. So I think that was the end of the question.
Right,
if anybody has a question that hasn't asked one or would like to ask another one, please just unmute your microphone and have at it. If
Okay.
not, we really appreciate everybody's time, and David or I or Brian and any of the Sentia team members are available at any time to answer any of these questions, or just have a chat about what is feasible versus what you should do. We're
I'll
happy
send out
to
the
have those
recording of today
discussions.
as well in the deck after the meeting this afternoon as well. So I know that was one of the questions there. So. All right. If no one's got any questions, appreciate the time today. We'll do another quarterly briefing end of March, which should be interesting because I know there's a couple of really big innovations that talked about privately coming out in February. So look for that invitation in your emails.
Yes, and also we're on the 4th week of January. We're going to be interviewing Michael Hudlow. Michael has a new book coming out on how to effectively create a CRM and AI integration that is amazing, and actually has the users using it, which, as you said, David, 26% and 28% of users.
Terrible.
You know, I always laugh and I was like, okay, so if a hotel has 25% occupancy, how long does it stay in business?
Yeah.
In the SaaS world of CRMs, you know, a 25 to 30% usage rate is a great thing. So obviously the hotel business and the CRM business are different, but just to give you an idea what a gigantic problem it is, it really.
All right. Thanks everyone for attending, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you again soon at a session. So thanks, Dave. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.